Hey y'all, Hans on TCG here, where today we're going to be going over 5 of the worst investments that I saw over the past year, how to avoid those mistakes, and the smart investments that I think you could be making even with some of these products. So let's get into it. So for these, I really wanted to go over both the amount of value lost in this investment potential over the past year when you could have bought at the peak and now have to sell, as well as the percentage lost, because when you have something that's a larger piece of your investment portfolio for someone who's an average collector like this XY Evolutions booster box, that's going to be a big piece that if it loses quite a bit of value, that's a big problem for you. But if you have a $10 card that loses 90% of its value, like that's not necessarily that big of a deal. So I'm going to mix those two combinations here and the criteria moving forward. So we have here, again, the Evolutions booster box, and this kind of saw a huge boom during the 2020-2021 timeframe, moving up to around $1,000 a booster box. And now you see it peaked here, even in the past year, at $852. And this is kind of a wild swing that you don't normally see in a booster box. And I'm not sure if this is something that's very interesting to new investors because it looks like it's expensive. Everyone likes Evolutions. But if you talk to anyone who's really serious about investing and in the Pokemon community, you know Evolutions doesn't carry that much weight. And I don't know if that's accounting for the wild swings here, but if you bought at the 852 mark and you're down here at now 706, that's $150 lost and 17%. Like that's a pretty big chunk. You know, that's I'm not really big on Evolutions moving forward. I think the buy point for one of these is probably around $500 or less, honestly, for me. If it ever hits that point, sure, I might consider it from the fact that I think it will age decently from the nostalgia factor alone. But right now, $700, I don't really see this as something that's really going to be appreciating super well in the future. Next up here, we have the Charizard VMAX, and this is from the Shining Fates collection, the Shiny Vault. And this is, I'm going to be looking at both the PSA 10 as well as the raw values for these cards, because I think that's the most fair assessment of their overall value, because that's generally what people collect in terms of investing. And this is the past year. We see it was peaking around 457, and this was falling even before then, and 142. And now we're sitting at $92 for the ungraded and $218 for the PSA 10. Yeah, that's about a 50% loss on the PSA 10 value, and this is not even like going back. This was even more expensive. This was $1,000+ previously in 2021 timeframe. And so I don't really see this card. It has a huge population. A lot of Charizards do, and I think that's what's really getting people, and also new collectors. They're like, oh my gosh, we got to get the Charizard. We got to get it in a PSA 10. We got to grade it. And while that's great, that's cool to have a graded Charizard. I think this is a beautiful card. Don't get me wrong. But when you're talking about appreciating in value, and these cards have 20, 30,000 populations for the PSA 10s, like I'm not sure exactly the population for this one. But I know like the Charizard V from the Champion's Path has well over 50,000 PSA 10s. And just the sheer number of them, you're not going to get much value out of them, because if everyone has a copy, then what makes it rare? Finding grading cards that are vintage, don't have much of a chance at growing in population, are scarce. I'd say rarity over everything is generally a good rule, but don't go out trying to find the most obscure pop 5 card, pop 1 of 1, etc., like 2003 like random card, because you got to have a mix of cards that are desired and cards that are scarce. So when you're looking at the population reports, don't just be like, oh, this only has one of them in a CGC perfect 10, but if no one wants it, no one's going to buy it. So it's not necessarily a valuable card. Remember to cross-reference those two things. So here is an example of a delivery delay for the Pokemon Go Pokemon Center Elite Trainer Box. And this is something that was one of the kind of least desired sets in the Sword and Shield era. It kind of came out at a random time, at 5 years after Pokemon Go was even really like at its peak popularity, and it peaked here at $167, excuse me, because it was delayed and Pokemon Center was sold out, so people had major FOMO around this, and it was only for about a month, and people signaled like, hey, don't worry, there's going to be more coming, but still people bought these at these prices. And I think the important lesson to learn here is just stay patient, because if Pokemon has just come out with a product, even if it's a Pokemon Center ETB, they're printing a lot right now. And just take that logic test and be like, they're going to print more. Like, there's going to be more. I don't have to buy it here at 3 times MSRP. I will wait. And look, if you did wait, now it's at $63. And I bought one of these from the Pokemon Center at $65, because I think anything Pokemon Center Elite Trainer Box is a win at MSRP. And I never thought any of them would go below MSRP, but this one has. So I also think this is a great time to pick this up, just because it's a cool display piece. I think any of these that are exclusive are the only chance at an ETB outside of Evolving Skies in the Sword and Shield era where you'll see generally really good returns in the future that aren't going to be capped due to the sheer amount of them printed. And I just urge you all with your collection dollars, especially if you're focusing on investing, to just sit down with yourself if you're just having that itch to buy it, because I know I do too. I got it with this Charizard Ultra Premium collection, which is not on this list because I've talked about it enough lately. But it also follows a similar trend where people thought there was going to be a shortage of them, overpaid for it, and then regretted it. So please go forward, just be patient. And the next two here were kind of tied between the Darkness Ablaze ETB and the Vivid Voltage ETB. And why I want to talk about these is the lesson learned of reprints and what they do to the value of not great sets. And if you look at something that didn't get this treatment, it would be the Rebel Clash ETB, which was not a great set in the Sword and Shield era, but never received a major reprint due to the pandemic hitting right around its time frame. And so that still maintains a value of around $130 for an ETB when it's not that great of a set. But when you have sets that follow the similar pattern of one reprint of ETBs, you look at what happened here to Vivid Voltage. People were paying $101 for these back even in January, February timeframe. They got a reprint and went straight down back in November here, just a month ago, to $33. And I think this is honestly like a decent price to pick up a Vivid Voltage ETB. I got one 3 for 2 at GameStop during their Pro Rewards days, which I think if you're buying something like these on discount, like, yeah, they'll appreciate some. But again, this set is carried by Pikachu, which is not the worst thing in the world, but that's all it really has. So please don't think that this is something that's going to go to the moon. It will appreciate, but pick it up as a modest filler piece in your collection. But Darkness Ablaze got it even worse, because Darkness Ablaze only has the Charizard VMAX as its only card over $10 right now. And that card has been outclassed by the Rainbow Charizard VMAX as well as the Shiny Charizard VMAX. Even though that was already on the list, both those cards are better than this one. And we saw this go from 140 down to 2864. It's never been lower. And just understand that when you're buying something, it's like, okay, it's expensive because it's scarce. And there's always an inherent risk that Pokemon will reprint something like that. And you're not really safe until you're a couple years out. I think the thing is about a year out for ETBs, 2 years out for booster boxes. And so this one, I think, was a little bit of a misnomer because Darkness Ablaze released back in fall of 2020. And it wasn't until really up here in February of 2022 that they received a reprint. So this just goes to show that Pokemon is printing a lot right now. They want to be selling a lot, especially the ETB at a lower price point. I think sells pretty well in box stores. If you're paying this much, this just hurts because this is like an 80% loss in value just in a year. And I bought 2 of these at $25 each at Collecticon in Long Beach, and that's about the only time I'd ever buy these. It was just like, okay, that's $25. Like, that's an easy price for me to pick this up. I think these are very limited, and I will not be investing in any more Darkness Ablaze in the future because I think it's the worst tiered set in Sword and Shield. Go check out my other video on my tiered list of Sword and Shield sets on investing preference. But please know that Pokemon will be probably reprinting ETBs at least one time. Wait for it to happen. If it doesn't happen, so what? Like, okay, you've now not made that decision, but you've probably made 10 other decisions that were patient and waited and turned out good. So you have a collection that is appreciating and more valuable. And maybe you could trade some of that for this if it is scarce, and that's another piece to your collection. Like, that's something that I think is always a viable option, and don't get FOMO just because you missed out on the first wave of something. The last piece here we have is the special delivery Charizard. And oh my gosh, guys, if you bought this during the hype, I apologize because you are looking at 90% losses on your PSA 10 here. And I think this is a cool card. I do. I got one. I waited multiple months until there was the codes available for $8. And I know that some people even got them for $5. But when this first came out, the codes were selling for hundreds of dollars, and even the raw cards were selling for $400+. And I saw them going for $350, $360 daily back then. And then we look at not only that, but then the PSA 10 numbers. And this is on price charting, so these are actual like sale averages. It's not just like speculative market market value, this sold for around $1,600 for a PSA 10. And that is astounding to me from the fact that these were going to be so widely available. And it's again the same one as the Pokemon Go Elite Trainer box that we talked about earlier, where there was a lot of supply. It's just that Pokemon took a while to get it out. And you could see everyone all the time, I don't know, Reddit, Instagram, all over just posting like, got my code, gonna get my card. And then it's just like everywhere. You just know it's coming. And they even said, wait, the codes are coming in waves. Just listen to what they're saying, because you're not going to miss out that much. It's $40 now. If you want this card for $40, I think this is a great card for $40. I think this is a great card for $80 even. This is a pretty cool card. It's got Pikachu and Charizard on it. It's a cool promo. It's just, you lost 90% of your value in a raw card and 85% in a graded card. It's only going for $260 now, which I still think is a little much for a PSA 10. I think it should be around 200, if not less. So my number one rule of investing is just be patient. And I've said it here multiple times, but you can't be goaded into buying something from a higher value just because you think it's going to go up higher. Like, you have to step back, look at it, check out the logic. What's the population of these graded cards? What's the likelihood Pokemon's going to reprint one of these sets in their first run? Like, if it's pretty high, just take some time, look elsewhere, spend your dollars wisely, and then come back to it in the future. And it's like, okay, well, now I have the means to buy it. Now I have the ability to come back and buy the thing I really wanted at a lower price. You'll win more times than not. I can promise you that. And especially on singles and graded cards. Sealed product is a bit more hit or miss. I'd say always buy them in MSRP. Under MSRP is always a great deal. And continue to look for sales, deals, etc. So let me know if there's any other things you guys thought I missed here. I'm going to be continuing these series for best investments, worst investments, and what to look for to grow your portfolio and to grow your investments here in the future. So thanks. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe if you like what you're watching. Hans von TCG out. Thank you.